George and Annie were retired music teachers, and their later years were peaceful and warm. However, one morning, Annie suddenly fell into a daze. Although she regained normalcy a few minutes later, the strange behavior left her husband uneasy. Sure enough, after being taken to the hospital, Annie was diagnosed with an ischemic stroke. After surgery, Annie was paralyzed on her right side, and from then on, she could only rely on a wheelchair. After finally being discharged and returning home, Annie's first words to her husband were a request never to be sent to the hospital again. Out of understanding and respect for his wife, George made a promise. In the days that followed, her husband became her full-time caregiver, caring for her every day with great attention, never once complaining. But one day, when he went out to attend a funeral, he came home to a heartbreaking scene. Annie was slumped on the floor, with the window wide open beside her. It turned out that during this time, Annie had been filled with inner pain. She longed to retain her dignity, not wanting to become a burden to others. George didn't know what to say to comfort her, but after this incident, Annie never left the house again. Everything they needed was brought to the house. To help lift her spirits, George invited Annie's students over for a visit and even ordered the latest model of a wheelchair. Finally able to move around freely, Annie was as happy as a child in a candy store. She started to regain her strength, actively participating in rehabilitation training. However, in the face of illness, all her efforts seemed powerless. One morning, Annie had an accident and wet the bed. When George discovered it, she bit her lip tightly, filled with shame and humiliation. Little did they know, this was only the beginning. From then on, Annie's ability to care for herself deteriorated quickly, and George, feeling helpless, had to hire help. But choosing a caregiver became a difficult task. Seeing the new caregiver's rough movements, pulling Annie's scalp painfully, and forcing her to look in the mirror afterward, with no empathy at all, George felt immense pain and decided to fire the caregiver, even paying double the wages. However, this only earned him insults from the caregiver.
Vous êtes un méchant vieux bonhomme, plutôt à plaindre.
Je vous souhaite de tout cœur qu'un jour quelqu'un vous traite comme vous traitez vos patients.
Va te faire foutre.